Hey, everybody. Hello, 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 hello. Welcome to Hat Tuesday number 6. And I'm just going to go ahead and bring out my good friend, Paul. Paul,
Hey,
how's it going, my friend?
I'm very well, thank you, Luke. And you?
Oh, fantastic, man. It feels like, again, ever since we switched the format of the show to be a little bit more like, I guess, bi-weekly. Is that the right term? Twice a week? I don't know. You guys probably know better than I do. But, twice a week, we were going at first for every day, but I just kind of knew myself, right? I knew my energy levels. And I had to kind of take a step back not because I was tired of doing it. It was because, well, I think the real value in this show is going out there, doing my hat thing, then coming on here and sharing a little part of myself, a little part of my day. You guys obviously are have your own lives and are going to share, again, to the degree that you like. I mean, I'm not here obligating anybody to share their personal details, but I'm interested always, and I know, Paul, you've been away for a little bit. What's new with you, my friend?
Well, I went away to a franchise show.
Okay, yeah.
I'm active in the franchise world, and I sponsor one of the YouTube channels that operate within the industry with hats. And the reason is like, you know, what he does on his show. He says, right, he gets to the end of the show and says, right, okay, what hat are you wearing today? And
Yeah.
he'll bring out hats and so on. So I went along to the event and I took a couple of my hats, and I just thought I'd show
Yeah.
you. I know you and I have got sort of hat boxes, but these are the
Yeah.
sort of things that I use to take
Yeah.
around my hats in, and
I like that.
they just open up, and you can keep the hat in really good
Yeah.
shape. So the nice thing is you walk into a room and people aren't used to seeing men wearing hats these days, and so you
Yeah.
immediately become sort of center of attention, and most people are very complimentary, and I did feel that and experience that, so that was quite good.
Yeah.
From a hat perspective, I've had a couple of hats that have come in for repair, but this one is a
Yeah.
this is a Herbert Johnson. Do you know Herbert Johnson, the people that make the Raiders of the
Yeah. The
Lost Ark?
Indiana Jones.
Well, they make other hats as well, and this is a bit of an experiment for me because this is a Panama hat, clearly, that's been made in
Yeah.
Ecuador. Fairly fine. I don't know if you can see that, but fairly fine
Yeah.
weave in that hat.
Oh,
And
yeah.
this has been bought by me as an experiment. It's a size 55, and I'm going to
Yeah.
steam it and see if I can get it out to a size sort of 57, 58, 59, or what I can do with it. Because it's got a very wide brim on it. And I think that I can probably, I'm in the middle of just taking off the hat band, sweatband inside, and I'll take off the outer band and then steam it,
Yeah.
stretch it out, and we'll see whether it works. So I'll give you an update as time goes by. But if it works, it opens up a big opportunity to buy the smaller size hats and take them to a bigger size. And I've done it on several occasions with felts, but I've never really done it with straws before. So I thought I'd try that out.
Right. Yeah. Paul, and again, you kind of know already a little bit of my personal journey in terms of like hats. I started off with a straw, but it was a gateway to felt hats. But I feel like I've been getting this kind of movement towards like, I think the Untouchables, right? Frank Nitty's character. And I got so much great feedback on that. Just that one still of Frank Nitti played, I believe, as a Drago. Billy Drago was the actor. And I believe, okay, and I could be wrong, but I believe, because I was searching for the name, I believe it was what's called an optimal straw. But again, I don't know the answer for sure. I know that there's such a thing as an optimal straw. Now it's up to you guys that are a little bit more knowledgeable about straws to tell me, okay, yes, Luke, that was, or no, I know why you thought it was, but this is why.
Yeah, I mean, I
Beautiful hat. Beautiful
I
hat.
like, yeah, I love and follow Optima with some of the things that they do. It's that they've got a great showroom there. I think it's a fire station they've got it in, and it makes for great looking. So if you've never reached out, people watching here, to find that brand, have a look at Optimo. It's a real experience. Beautiful
Yeah, I
hats.
believe the gentleman's name is Graham. I don't know his last name, but Steve Heck, who was on this channel, is actually really good friends with Graham. So Steve told me, well, I don't know. I can't promise you anything, but if anything, I will go, because Steve, man, what a tremendous, obviously all you guys are a blessing. Steve is also, another blessing, only because he's local to me. Right. So he's in Maryland, and he's basically like, we met halfway to have that lunch, and he is, wow. Obviously you guys all seen him here talking about, his expertise and his love for the, for the real actor velour. But that gentleman is fascinating. Shout out to Steve, because he just has a way of like showing you, wow, I got so much more, right? Like, how when you meet somebody, you're like, that person has so much more to offer than he's even showing right now. And shout out to Steve, because you are an asset. And again, he's always invited. I told him, I said, without the obligation, I do the same thing for all you guys, because, well, one, I value his time. I value all of your time. So when you come on here, I want to be respectful of it, because I know you guys got a lot going on. So, Paul, thanks for sharing.
Oh, you're very welcome. It's a great platform. It's nice to be able to share some thoughts and ideas. And, if we can just convince one person to go out there and buy, a used hat, a used felt, let's say, oh, it's getting a bit colder, and start wearing hats. Start with a smaller brim and just get used to, having something on your head. You never know. It might just spark an interest that then blossoms into a great hobby.
That's right. And this is why, this was one of the reasons, Paul, that I started this hat giveaway, right? This is a hat that I don't wear. And you know what? Maybe in somebody else's possession, this will be their version of my blue straw hat, right? And it's not, it's still a fine hat. It's got some moth bites, right? But this could very well be somebody's start on either their own personal hat journey in terms of collecting, or it could be their part of their, maybe you're already a hat person, but you want to get into restoring hats, kind of like Paul got in his journey. This could be one of those hats for you, no matter what kind of hat person you are, or even if you're not a hat person. That's the whole point. Like, I don't do these things just to be, to be cute, although I like to be cute. But it's one of those things where I do this for a very real reason. And if you guys follow along with a lot of like my platform, if you've kind of met me in person, or you know me just from social media, a lot of the things that I write they're not accident, right? Like, and maybe you guys that know me a little bit better know, like, whatever Luke is writing here, there's a reason behind it. I like to talk, trust me. I got a lot of words, but I try to have a purpose with everything I do, only because, well, there's nothing more beautiful than being understood, right? I think there's some, like, everybody knows that. Everybody knows the feeling when somebody across from you or somebody out there doesn't understand what you're doing. And it's so frustrating, right? Like, it's like, I don't know how to get my point across. So if somebody out there understands me, like, I feel like, wow, man, I love it. And I've gotten that, right? So the gentleman that I talked about, William, I'm going to just say William. William is local. I met William. I've met him technically on Facebook way back when, but we met in person recently. I did an event I went to, a local drinking event. So shout out to Drink Nova. So he got to meet me in person, and then we friended each other on Facebook. And he saw the Hamburg, Paul. He saw the black Scott & Co. Hamburg, and he said, "Wow, that's like a Biggie hat." And I'm like, "Yes." Yeah. And then I posted I posted a still of Biggie Smalls wearing a Hamburg, and he was like, "You get me." And I was touched. You know what I mean? Like, if somebody says, "You get me," finally somebody gets me, you already won my heart, right? Because I know what it's like. Even within my family, sometimes I feel like, and again, nobody knows me better probably than my own family, right? My own mom and dad. And even then, sometimes it's like, "I don't get you, son," And you're like, that one stings a little. Go ahead, Paul.
Well, when you go and see them next time, it'd be lovely to know what they thought of the Homburg, because I have to say, you really do wear that lovely and well, as they say. It looked really nice, and what a fit! What a fit! Who would have thought from here to you? Who would have thought that would have been such a good fit? So I hope they they look as though, yeah, Luke's grown up.
Oh yes, I tell you, the Hamburg again. And I'm obviously this channel is geared for all sorts, right? That those folks that are in the world, right? So those hardcore folks, there's nothing I can say about the Hamburg that you don't already know. But for those folks that are out there, they're like, because I've seen a lot of things where like Run DMC, they would say, well, that's a Hamburg. Well, no, it's not a Hamburg, but I get what I get why you think it's a Hamburg, because it's that interplay between the wearer and the person and the hat itself that really create that image, right? There's a kind of a regality to that Hamburg, that stature. And again, no coincidence as to why in cinema, in our Fedora Fridays, we've seen the Hamburg used to great effect. It's a hat that very much like if you want to establish yourself as somebody to be taken seriously, well, before you get to that point, before you prove why you should be wearing a Hamburg, right? Why you should be respected, you can go ahead and get yourself a Hamburg, and all of a sudden you will see from your reactions, and you don't have to believe me, you can try it yourself. Go ahead and wear that hat in public. And if you want, and if you're so daring, right? If it's okay, wear the all black Hamburg. And Paul's nodding because he knows you see a black Hamburg, automatically you command attention. And again, maybe you're not comfortable with that. That's fine. But again, don't wear a fine hat if you don't want looks, right? That's just it is what it is,
Yeah.
It's such a great hat, Paul. Thank you so much. And obviously, that's not the subject of today's thing, but it is the subject of today's video is one of your beauties here. And man, Paul, like, you know what I mean? If I haven't really conveyed it, I probably haven't done it justice. How beautiful, and like what you knocked it out the park, my friend, with this one.
Well, it's very kind of you to say. I mean, obviously it's something that you grow up with as a hatter. You're making hats all the time, and that was a hat that I made originally for my son for a photo shoot, and then it was something that you picked up on, and we then talked about the thoughts that you had about the trim to go around the brim, and ultimately the other bits and pieces that set the hat off. And thank you, Ian. Yeah, it's a hat that's made of 5% beaver felt and 95% rabbit, and the beaver gives it that little bit more sheen. And when you've got felts around, and look, you've got all those hats there, you've got felts around you, you'll be able to feel the difference. You will be able to feel the difference. And it's such a soft hat, and I pounced that hat for quite a while. So what we mean by pouncing is actually taking different grades of sandpaper, rubbing the felt so that you can get the nap of the felt to all go in the same direction, and to really finesse it into a lovely soft feel. In fact, you can get the lower quality felts like a rabbit or even a mixed felt, up to feeling as though perhaps it's a beaver felt, because you can work on it that well,
That hat puts the smile, unbeatable combination. Oh, that hat plus the smile. That's what I meant to say. Ian, thank you. Again, you guys that are in my inner circle, you kind of seen in real time the process. That wasn't intentional, right? So really, I was trying to, and again, this is one of those happy accidents, right? And Paul, I will try to, you can kind of talk about your perspective on the process, right? We essentially had a process via Messenger on Facebook, right? We had just gotten off a video call. I went on one of my walks, right? And again, I really put it out there because that's really a big part of my reawakening, I want to say, right? And I hate to be so, I don't know, artsy about it. But I do kind of fashion myself as maybe, if not an artist, and a love of art, right? As life as art, right? And my walks are really a big part of that. So it was absolutely no surprise to me that the genesis of this hat, meaning not the genesis, right? It's the evolution of this hat, because it started off as one iteration, and ultimately in the course of a very, very seemingly benign conversation with Paul via Messenger, right? Not even a video chat, via Messenger, the written word, this hat came to life. And you don't know what kind of smile I had on my face, Paul, on that walk when I finally hammered that home. And I'm like, yes, this is how the hat is meant to be. This is part of the reason why that that ad that you put out, Paul, you know, spoke to me. Like, this is a hat that was meant to be in my possession. And this is kind of the way things happen, right? So if you guys are somebody that has ever made what a lot of consumerists talk about, emotional purchases, right? Emotional purchases, I know there's kind of like a little bit of a stigma around the emotional purchase. Quite the opposite, right? Everybody knows, and that at least that has viewed my channel, that the way a hat makes you feel when you put it on is one of the most important things. But before you get to put it on, sometimes you got to buy it first, right? So
Yeah.
before, yeah, right. I couldn't go and put the hat on because Paul is all the way out in the UK. You know, I'm here in the Washington, D.C. metro area. There's no way I could put this hat on. Plus, the hat wasn't in its final form yet. I had to have a vision, kind of like you do with a house, right? You want to build a house or you want to buy a house. Yeah, all art is magical in origin. Great quote. Great quote. Thank you, Ian. Again, my man Ian, like I said, this is my brother from another mother. You guys all are, you know, it's just that I have a lot of brothers in blood related as well as, you know, from another mother. You don't even know how true that quote is. But the process of this, and I know I'm getting a little verbose here, the process of buying this, of buying anything is, okay, how much coin is going to take me to get this thing, and how much value am I going to place on that coin, right? And nobody can tell you what the value is on that purchase, right? You know how it makes you feel, right? I have a good friend, you know, kind of I consider him a good friend, but he's more an acquaintance. But he's into Porsches, right? You know, and I don't have a Porsche. I drive a Toyota Corolla, right? The anti-Porsche, right? If you had two kind of polar opposites, you would have my beat up Corolla and his Porsche, and you got two guys, but two guys that respect each other because he values that Porsche and what it brings him, right? So anybody that drives a Porsche and you're like, well, why don't you try your hand at a Corolla? You might as well be talking a different, like, you might be talking like an alien language to them. Like, no, I'm not driving a Corolla. You know, and you know it's not for want of funds, right? Because, you know, if you can drive a Porsche, you can drive a Corolla. But if you drive a Corolla, you may or may not be able to drive a Porsche. You know what I mean? It's just, they're different markets. But my Corolla brings me joy, just like his Porsche brings his joy. And I know he drives a Porsche, but when he came out to my house, he drove a BMW, an M3. So you start knowing a little about the man, right? I kind of know a little bit of what makes him tick. No pun intended. I guess if you know, depending on what kind of ticks you're hearing from your engine, you probably don't like that. But you obviously, he's signaling to the world about what kind of guy he is, and it's, you know, it's a little bit more common than maybe a hat guy, right? But we have a very much a kinship because we both like to surround ourselves with the things that bring us joy, with the people that bring us joy, with the ideas that bring us joy. So again, I know that this is something, I'm not speaking anything revolutionary or even like that mind-blowing, but in many ways, the most simple things are the most mind-blowing. You know, why do we buy what we buy?
It's funny when I might be going out for a walk or going out with my wife somewhere, and putting on a hat or selecting a hat can be a bit of a challenge when you've got so many. Yeah. But actually, picking the right hat can be quite a comfort, not just in the literal comfort, but also in making it how you feel. And you know, it's a nice warm feeling, and I think physically and mentally. And I think once you start to get into the habit of wearing a hat and not really worrying about what other people think, then it's a great experience. You know, I know when Ian and I went around London, we spoke before about the fact that, you know, a couple of people were quite keen on taking photographs of us and so on. And yeah, that's nice. If that's what makes them feel comfortable, they'd like to record it, then so it be. You know, I mean, from our point of view, it's just how we dress. You know, it's how we roll, as they say.
Yeah, and I know car guys, and again, Paul, I know you're a car guy. Brian Forbes, shout out to Brian, by the way. This is the snowflake hat, by the way, Brian. You got center stage today. So shout out to my man Brian Forbes with the snowflake. I just love this idea of the red, white, and blues. Right? I got my Akubra, I got my PJ Murphys here. Again, you know, if you guys have listened to the show, you guys know that Luke is formally diagnosed with ADHD. I'm on Adderall, so now you guys are either benefiting or suffering from Luke on Adderall. And how about quotes for you, right? I said this morning is that, hey, my man Josh, good morning, Josh. Shout out to Josh. But the best thing about Adderall that I can tell you, and then he got Ian, he rides a bicycle. Yeah, shout out to a Queen. I like to ride my bicycle, right? My boy's Queen. Again, these are artists that speak to me, just like Paul the artist, right? Again, Paul, you might be chuckling about that, but Paul is an artist. This hat makes him an artist to me, regardless of what Paul thinks. And as Brian Forbes is an artist, hat as art it speaks to me. And again, we got our cheers. I love it. I love it. You know, what I wanted to say was, you know, the Adderall, I'm like, man, what a wonderful drug. This Adderall really frees me up to express my OCD. So I'm like, that's so true. It's not even funny, right? Because if I'm not on my Adderall, then this doesn't even happen. Like, I don't look at this and say, I got to arrange these hats the way I got to arrange them. You know what I mean? Because I can't, because I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to do this live stream. I got to do this. I got to do that. You know what I mean? Again, I can't help being the way I am, and hopefully it's not too distracting. You know, we talked about like being a little bit of more Busta Rhymes, very bombastic. That's just the way I am. I've always been that way. Thanks to this Adderall, I can be this way and maybe serve a purpose, right? With this channel, with my good friends, right? I get by with a little help of my friends. We got Paul here. This hat doesn't happen without the process, the creative process of me and Paul getting together via the medium that we have available to us, which is Messenger, you know, and besides Zoom, right? We had that. But I thought it was just so beautiful, right? Such beautiful. And again, I called it the Ebony and Ivory. That's not something that's something that I envisioned as soon as Paul, I told Paul, go with the ivory. When Paul told me this was ivory, I immediately thought Ebony and Ivory. This is it. And then yeah. You know, it's like and again, I couldn't communicate that to Paul then because one, I didn't have the bandwidth. Well, two, you know, I wanted to let Paul, and I wanted to allow Paul the vision to create this hat with the input that I provided. I want to give him the vision and the freedom to do with the hat, right? Because like Paul added the X on both sides. I thought that was brilliant. I didn't tell you to do that, Paul. I thought that was brilliant.
I think it's a statement on the hat that wherever you wear it, people are going to say, "Love the hat, Luke," but how about the cross? What's that all about? And it'll always be a talking point for you to be able to spin whatever discussion you want to about it. But but I personally, I think it looks great.
I agree.
As to whether or not I would have come up with that as an idea without our conversation, I doubt it. So, you know, it's a great joint venture of where the client and the creator, if you like, come together, which, you know, I can only echo with your message there about, as I see it, the hat is the end piece. It's actually the journey that the client goes on in contacting me and talking to us, the hatters, going through the whole process. And there's about 15 or 20 parts of the hat that we talk about, the shape of the crown, the dents in the side, obviously the size of the brim and the size of the crown and all the trimmings that go on it and so on. And when you multiply all that through, you know, it can be a sort of 45 minute to an hour's conversation, especially when you want to get to know the client and then you want to try and put some of their personality into it. I mean, I've got a customer in the UK. Every single hat he's had for me, he's asked me to put a mauve lining in because he was in the paratroopers. That's their color, and he just wanted a nod to the paratroopers. And I thought that was lovely, by the way. I thought that was great, and clearly that's something that's very straightforward and easy for me to do. But it's another part of his life that he wants to reflect in his hats.
Correct. Yeah, and that's the thing. Like nobody, right? So the idea is, and I'm so glad. Again, everybody likes to be validated. Paul validates my viewpoint, right? Because I happen to agree 110% that it's about the process, right? It's about the journey, right? Everything is about the journey, right? The struggle, the right. So when somebody goes through something like the military, I listen because I've never, and I probably will never be in the military, not because I have ill feelings towards the military, far from it. I used to work with military personnel. They are some of the most interesting people I've ever come across. So the fact that I own a hat that used to belong to somebody that went to jump school, without knowing that gentleman at all, I automatically feel like I have a piece of him, right? And I carry a piece of his journey with me. Right? Just like when somebody buys one of my hats, especially if it's a hat that I've worn, well, now you no longer just bought a hat, you bought a piece of Luke, right? If I worn a hat, you bought a piece of me, right? The gentleman in Utah that's bought a couple of hats from me, he didn't just buy a hat, he bought a piece of Luke, because that hat made me feel a certain way that I had to make it mine. And ultimately, it didn't end up with me. It ended up with some gentleman in Utah that said, you know what, Luke, I got to have that hat. And there you go. And now you have it. I want to make sure Josh Josh says, I have undiagnosed ADHD and a small for autism. It helps me when I work and make hats. Yes. Like I said, Ian said it very, very well when I talked about ADHD. At the time, Paul, when you were on and you had to step off, Ian stayed on and we had such a great discussion. Shout out to Ian, who's here, but he's lurking in the shadows, right? He's kind of doing the Ian thing, providing the quotes, providing some of the fact checking that I never asked him to do, but I love it because again, Ian is Ian is a Renaissance man. What else can you say about Ian? That he is a Renaissance man. He is very much very beloved here. And again, one day he's going to have his own YouTube channel. I feel it. I feel like the universe is telling me Ian's destined to be on screen because who doesn't love that face with the pipe? You know, I'm picturing it in my head, and Paul's smiling because Paul hung out with Ian, so he got the full Ian. He's great. He probably forgot more than I will ever know, and that's why he's an asset. That's why you guys are all assets to the channel. But again, I feel like I'm getting out there with the words. What I want to do is before is to get on screen and show some photos of this hat. You guys kind of know the format. I try to use still photos only because, well, I like wearing the hat. I don't want to keep taking it off and just showing you guys and doing that whole panorama thing, and then knock over my camera before you know it, the whole show is gone, right? I create these things in my head like this disaster that's going to happen. But you guys all know that's kind of that whole OCD thing. Let me bring out, and before the reason, I also want, before I forget about Josh's comment here is I was undiagnosed for about, I want to say 2013 was when I first started noticing I got symptoms of ADHD. So I just got diagnosed. We're talking about what, 12 years of being undiagnosed. Now that I'm on Adderall, and again, I know people don't like taking medicine. I'm one of those people. But until I got on Adderall, I'm like, where have you been my whole life? You know, it's just, sometimes you're never too old to learn new tricks. So I just say that to not just you, Josh, but anybody out there, either in my family or you guys, because you guys are all my family. You guys may not have the same parents, but we're family. So just shout out to you guys. If you want to go out there, it's really easy. You can try it. Nobody says, right? It's kind of like a hat. You can see how it lives, right? And I'll tell you guys how it's going. Maybe I decide in a year, hey, you know what? This Adderall thing, forget about it. You make your own decision. Do your own research. Make your own decisions. I'm not a doctor. I don't even play one on TV. So just don't take your health advice from me. Pretty much don't take any advice from me. Like, I just do what I do. I'm honest, but you guys do you, right? Like the kids say, you do you, I'll do me. And then I'll tell you honestly what I think, and then you can make a decision. So I will leave that alone. The Surgeon General has stopped speaking. So he's like, everybody's looking at the C. Everett Koop over here, you know, on the wonders. But I wanted to kind of start off with this, right? Remember, I was trying to get, I finally reached, I believe it was last night while I was sleeping, I reached 50 subscribers. So, you know, I kind of want to do a little bit of an achievement here, right? Because again, you guys know I want subscribers, but it's not like it's my only goal with this. Like I've pretty much achieved just about everything, even with before I got to 50 subscribers with this channel, right? Obviously, I want to get monetized at some point so I can reinvest in the channel. But this is I have to celebrate these things because, well, if I don't celebrate my wins and you don't celebrate your wins, right? We have several wins that we've celebrated here, none of which were pretty much my own, right? I mean, we celebrated recently Morgan. Morgan's going to be having her own place. Right. That's the reason why she's been away. She's busy doing that. Josh just recently had his first customer. Right. That was a celebration. You know, and again, Paul, I feel like just us getting together and working on this hat. Right. That was a win for both of us. Right. Paul got to move a couple hats. He got to, you know, we got to become friends. And the same thing with Brian Forbes, right? Also, another win was getting Robert Galt on this platform. Like, there's been so many wins here, and I know we don't always verbalize them, but I want this to be a platform, right? Because this is basically online version of Cheers, right? Where everybody knows your name and they're always glad you came, right? You guys are all welcome here and again, it's not bragging, right? If it's the truth, it's not bragging. So if you go out and you get yourself a Porsche, you know, if you get yourself a Rolex, if you get yourself something that means something and you want to share it, you guys share it here because it's not, like I said, at least for me, I won't speak for anybody else. You won't get any judgment from me. I'm going to be like, good on you, you know, like do life, right? If you're not having fun and surrounding yourself with all the things and people and ideas that mean something to you, then you're doing it wrong. Sorry, it's just my opinion, you know? So shout out to Good Luke's for 50 subscribers. Again, hopefully more to come, but even if I stay here, even if I go down to 1, if somebody's out there and really digs my content, it's all worth it, right? It's all worth it. Thank you, Paul. Thank you. Thank you. But now to the topic at hand, which is this beauty. Oh my gosh. Again, every time I look at this hat from whatever angle, well, first of all, this is just the idea that Paul uses some of the best materials for his hats, right? You know, Paul, as you may or may not know, based on like his time here, Paul decided when he was going to get into hatting that he was going to use the best materials available. That's an individual choice. That's Paul saying, I may not be you know, Optimo, I may not be Huffwood, I may not be Hornscoff, but I can still use the same materials, right? Because what I found out from Steve is that Optimo uses FEPSA felts.
Right. Yeah.
So again, this can very well be your Grail hat. And let me tell you something, having worked with Paul does not charge. And again, no offense to Hornscoff, to Huffwood, or to Graham at Optimo. Great hats. I don't own them. I own a PJ Murphy and Son, and I don't feel like I have any lesser a hat. And again, if you know you know my heart, you know I don't mean any ill will to those gentlemen because I respect their work. I respect everybody's work. But Paul uses the very same felts. You know, we talked about doing a trip over to FEPSA. I'm down, Paul. I am down for that.
I'd love that. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. Josh says FEPSA would be great to get. Yeah.
Well, you know, Josh, you can go on their website and you can order directly from their website. Now, what I don't know is how the shipment will go from Portugal to the US of A. But certainly, when I order FEPSA felts here, and you can order as low as sort of 10 felts, and the shipping cost to the UK is like £25. It comes. You know, I've had as many as 50, 60 felts in one box, and it's still £25. So that's a small percentage on top of the felt cost itself. and then they are so much better to work with.
Yeah.
The shipment is too high for here, is it?
Yeah,
that's such a shame.
I mean, again, there might be like, you may not be able to charge what Paul can charge, or you're right. Everybody has to have a price point. Paul talks about this all the time. Paul is right. Paul's second life is consulting for business, right? So Paul knows the idea behind product placement and what price point he wants to hit, but it may be less. You may not have the ability to price yourself like Paul, but what you can do is now use, let's say, Graham at Optimo as your comparison point, because Graham is based in Chicago. So you have to kind of talk to your market. And the nice thing is, right, that you, Josh, right, you have the ability to sell here within the U.S. for maybe a price that will be harder for somebody else outside the U.S. to sell for. So again, I always think about like, one, decide what kind of hat maker you want to be. And I do this I have no expertise in hat making, right? But my expertise is in psychology, and especially the psychology of business. I feel like the spammers know when I'm going to, so I got my phone ringing here, but I'm going to ignore that. Actually, let me go and stop it, spammers. Okay. Anyway, you guys have to decide what kind of hat maker you're going to be and who you're going to cater to. Maybe if you want to go after the Optimo crowd, well, then you're going to have to compete. You're going to have to go and start off with what Graham is using, right? And unless you find something better than FEPSA, I just don't think that exists right now. I really feel that Hornskov, again, I don't know Hornskov if he uses FEPSA, but I know Huffa does. Graham uses it. Paul uses it. If those three gentlemen say that FEPSA is the best that you can get, well, it's good enough for me, right? I mean, I'm feeling it right now. This felt, and I'm like, and I'm feeling it here. That's pretty damn good, the fingers don't lie, Yeah.
I mean, as soon as you start going up into the higher percentages of beaver, and in fact, this one's 100% beaver. I mean, you're into, this is like wearing butter on your head. It's so soft, it's just a different experience. But it's like you say, what's very difficult in the UK is actually getting people to understand value. And they see a trilby or fedora hat, and they don't really understand materials and the properties of those materials. And I get that. I do get it, because we don't educate people enough over here.
Yeah.
And so with that said, you get people that if you put a hat up on the eBay forum or something, let's say, where they can make offers, that they make silly offers because they don't necessarily understand what they're buying. And they've got nothing really in their mind to compare it to, because I'm a relatively unknown brand versus somebody like, if you take Stetson, for instance, when you're looking at the open road there, that one at Stetson might be $1,000, and my equivalent in dollars is about $350 to $400. And do you want to buy it for the brand, or do you want to buy it for the material and the actual makeup of it? And it's a challenge. But what happened to me this week, and I forgot to tell you actually when we first started this show, if you don't mind, just relay the story. There was on Facebook, there was, on one of the big sites there was a question, and it was, what would be your favorite hat that you would take if you can only take one hat? And one of my clients actually said that it was one of my hats, and it was actually because his wife is the only one that his wife can tolerate him wearing, and I just thought, I was really touched by that. And
how can you not be? That's
that was great.
Amazing. That's like, you can't get a better endorsement than that.
But not when the gentleman's got multiple hats. I think he's got 30 or 40 odd hats, and I just felt very humbled, to be fair. And I thought, that's the sort of thing that we hatters do it for. It's just little comments and feedback like that.
That's right. And I will go and I will write that as an achievement for PJ Murphy and Son. Again, I know that sounds like that's just a one customer, but again, Paul knows the value of just one person, right? If one person loves your work, you've already made Paul's day. Like, Paul's standing a little taller, right? He's going to be a little bit nicer, right? So that when Paul maybe gets an unsuspecting like problem, Paul's going to be able to that much more deal with it, because Paul knows there's somebody out there that really values his work. Well, I'm sure there's more than one person. I can tell you already, Paul, we got more than one person out there You knew that already, but I'm just saying that the obvious.
Yeah, it was just a lovely story. I just thought it was a nice story to share. That's all.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And for Josh here, for Josh's comment here, what I say is, take a stepwise approach, right? Let's say, right, because again, I've heard from Robert. Robert mentioned this when he was on here about this felter, this felt company in Tennessee, Winchester, Tennessee. I didn't know they were in Winchester. Robert just said in Tennessee, so I'm assuming it's the same folks that Robert was talking about. Okay, well, if you have a great source locally that you can work with, well, Josh, now you stick with this felt company, right? Let's say you sell X number of hats. And now, Josh, you will be able to make enough money to be able to secure, no matter what the cost, right, from FEPSA. And then you can tell for yourself. Josh can go and look at, right, the felt from Tennessee, the felt from FEPSA, and you can place your own value on the value of FEPSA versus the value of these folks in Tennessee. Because again, I don't know, because I don't know anything about felts. I'm sure somebody like Graham or somebody like Robert has probably sampled both FEPSA and these folks from Tennessee, and they can speak. Matter of fact, when Robert comes back on here, you guys can ask him. I will ask him. You've probably handled both of these, at least from my understanding. What is the value, like, as a hatter, somebody that has access, right? Because Robert has access. Graham, right? Graham sells $1,000+ hats. Graham has the funds and the reputation to have access to any felt he would like. But he can tell you this is why, why. And who knows, maybe Paul decides. Paul can say, you know what? I want to build a hat from a different price point. I'm going to reach out to these folks in Tennessee and see what it's like. I'm going to feel it with my own hands and see what's the value, right? Maybe it'll just confirm what Paul already understands, which is FEPSA's superior, but how much more superior, right? That's the whole point of you having the discretion to put out your product. And so what I'm trying to communicate here is that as a hatter, what I'm not saying is if you don't use FEPSA, you're crap. Far from it, right? Everything is from a price point, right? My friend that drives the Porsche wouldn't be caught dead in my Corolla, right? Right? My Corolla is built to be an appliance. He wants to drive something other than appliance, right? So that's the beauty of having choices out there.
Yeah, it's very interesting that people like Hupford and Hornscough, they use either 50-50 beaver or higher, up to 100% beaver felt. And I guess there's a reason for that, because it really does shape up nicely. It feels beautiful. Your customers are never going to be disappointed. But they put a charge, a price point there to justify it. And to be fair to them, they do a lovely job on things like the sweatband and all the trims. It's just the whole package. It's just lovely.
Yeah. Josh is sharing some interesting input here about the folks in Tennessee. I'd love to have him on the channel. Like I said, again, when I go and I praise FEPSA, I didn't know what FEPSA was until I met Paul. Right? I didn't know. You don't know what you don't know. Right? Again, I know a lot of guys like to pitch themselves as an expert in everything, but if you've seen my channel long enough, you know that I'm an expert in basically nothing. You know what I mean? I'm an expert in my own opinion, which is changeable, right? Because that's the definition of an intellectual. The ability to have an informed opinion, and for that opinion to be able to be changed based on new data, more convincing data, right? So I could have an opinion today, and then tomorrow you show me something else that I'm like, holy cow, I didn't know. Forget everything I said the last like 800 videos. I'm a human being. That's how I work, Josh says millinery in New York, Winchester Felters is in Tennessee. Got it. Well, they're both welcome here, because again, somebody like Paul, I know how Paul, a little bit about how Paul operates. He still wants to know, right? Because Paul is, Paul's like, okay, I use the best. You show me what your best is, and I will now know what you're going to get, right? With FEPSA, what you're going to get with these folks in Tennessee, what you're going to get, right? Again, and then what's the price of getting that? So Paul's customers, right? Paul may have a customer that says, listen, I don't want I don't like FEPSA. Who knows? I don't like Portugal. I don't know what their reason might be for why they don't like FEPSA. And then Paul said, well, if you don't want FEPSA, maybe I can go source from these folks in Tennessee or these folks in New York or wherever the source is, right? Because Paul's there to try to please his customers, right? You know, that it's always good to have options. Anyway, sorry, I'm getting a little ranty and you know, but I appreciate that, Josh. Again, me and Josh are gonna work together. You know, I'm just gonna wait for the right time, the right project, and then I'm gonna rope Josh in because, well, Josh, I value his journey and what his place is here, and I value the connection with Paul. I value the connection with Robert. Right, you're seeing there, right? This is not a very big hobby, right? So, you know, if you're somebody that doesn't make friends easily, you know, rethink that in here, right? If my example with Robert is any indication, this is why you don't burn bridges, right? You create them. If it's at all possible, create the bridge because, well, it may not be useful right now, but somehow in the universe finds a way for that bridge to become useful. And don't burn them, right? Unless you absolutely really know that that's what you want to do. I'm a big believer in discretion. Like, you want to be you against the world, right? You want to be Tupac, you know, or whatever, or, you know, some kind of person that just says, you know, F the world. That's, you know, that's on you. That's your power. But I know the power of collaboration. Paul knows the power of collaboration. There's, you know, love conquers all, right? I mean, you don't have to like love each other per se. I mean, I try to love people, but there's so much more to be gained with collaboration and with cooperation than there is via strife, with nastiness. I just find it, like I said, if this channel is any indication, that will show you that love. That's again why good looks is a word, right? Not great looks, not excellent looks, not the best looks, just good. You know, I'm just good. You know, I try to be good. You know, it doesn't mean that I don't see the value, right? You guys know I have a soft spot for villains, right? We talked about, right? So for so many people, Vito Corleone is a villain, right? I don't treat him as such. Bill the Butcher, right? Great villain. Bane from Batman, great villain, right? I think this hat, to be honest, it shows you, right? The ivory here. The ivory is not white, right? It's not bright. Ivory in itself is like a darker hue of lightness, right? But it's shrouded in this black. You don't notice this ivory pop as well until you see it surrounded by this black. There's a beautiful message there, right? You know, I embrace the full spectrum of emotion, right? I embrace my darkness, right? Like my shirt here. I love this shirt. I recently got this shirt. You've probably seen this shirt way too many times already because I love this shirt. This shirt is the Ebony and Ivory shirt. And it goes with this Ebony and Ivory hat to me. And that's my message. That's the way I signal to the world, right? The X on here says I'm not perfect, right? This is not, I'm not out here for perfection. If you want perfect, go talk to somebody else. And I hope you find them because I don't think that person exists. But if you want somebody that's just trying to be good, well, then talk to me, you know, or talk to Paul, you know, or talk to Ian or Josh, or anybody else that I try to keep around my circle because I see their inherent goodness, you know, and well, that's what this hat represents to me. So you kind of already know, like, if you haven't gotten it to this point, why I love this hat, well, then you're not listening. Right, Paul?
Oh, bravo, yeah.
Paul's like, I don't know. You know, it's like, you know, again, I can't help but just be me. You know, and look at this. This is, and I think I used this one for the thumbnail. Look at this beautiful hat. You know what I mean? No, it wasn't. I used the other side for the thumbnail, and I'll show that. What a gorgeous like, and again, this is just a classic PJ Murphy and Son shape. You know, like you see a lot of Paul's hats shaped this way.
It's very much like the Stratoliner that Stetson did.
Yeah.
It's a classic. I mean, we in the UK we're very reserved, and unless you're talking with Ian and I, you know, we're not so much. Yeah. But you know, the average person on the street that's buying their first or second hat is quite reserved. And I think the look of this hat has got a bit of youth in it as well as a bit of age, and it's, you know, it can be worn with a formal you know, jacket, or in fact a jean shirt or something. It's just a nice shape, you know. I really like it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's a do-it-all hat. I think that's what
Yeah.
Paul's kind of like a do-it-all watch, right? In the watch world, you have something like a Rolex Explorer, right? You know, if you don't have a Rolex money, then you can do an Omega Aquaterra. Or if you don't have Aquaterra money, then you can do a Hamilton khaki field. I own that watch, right? Because I'm not going to spend for an Omega, at least not right now. I'm not at Rolex and Omega territory, but I love the Hamilton khaki field automatic because it's a do-it-all watch, right? A watch that if you only own one watch, well, you could just have that watch. You know, this hat is very do-it-all to me. You know, it has elegance, and it also has that, like Paul said, that youthful enthusiasm. And I think who doesn't like, right, that the idea of right, seeing old people dance, right? If you ever see old people dance, there's nothing that brings me more joy than watching older folks dance, especially when they're able to dance with kids around them. And the kids are like not laughing at them, they're celebrating them, because that's how you want to be, right? If I'm 90, I want to be dancing.
Yeah.
So that's this hat, right? And one thing I also wanted to, before I get there, I want to make sure Josh said, I am developing a beginner's toolkit for up and coming hatters since the tools are so expensive, using 3D printing to do it. Look at that. That's brilliant. That's brilliant, right? Josh is able to do this because he's familiar with this technology, right? Josh comes from the IT world, right? I use ChatGPT, but I don't know anything about 3D printing. But Josh does. So now Josh can do something that probably very few of other hatters can do. I mean, I don't know. Maybe everybody knows about 3D printing. I don't know. But I like this. I really like this. Yeah. And again, there you go. Again, this is a place where you come up with your, you know, you're like, oh, this is crazy. Nobody would go this. Like, well, you got some people here that, again, like that idea. So now maybe you could talk to Paul or talk to, you know, who knows, you know, right? I value Paul's wisdom. You know what I mean? I always go back there because, you know, besides Paul, Steve Heck, who I just met, like those, you guys, I know that you guys got a lot of work going on in your life and upstairs, right? Like you didn't get to where you're at by accident. So, you know, that's why I always say, go talk to Paul or go talk to Steve. You know, I'll tell you what I think, but I value their opinion because, well, why wouldn't I, right? Like you've seen Paul in action, you've seen Steve Heck in action, right? You've seen Ian in action. These are guys that know what they're doing. And as, right, I consider myself really young sometimes. You know, I have a youthful enthusiasm sometimes, but I am close to 50. But I'm still learning on this. So, you know, that's why hopefully when I'm up there posting my rap music and I'm sharing a little bit about myself, you guys know a little bit more about me, right? Because again, I want to be understood, right? Kind of like that song, right? The by the Animals, right? Anybody heard the group The Animals, right? They had some really great songs about, but the one I love the most is Don't Let Me Be Misunderstood. That if I had a song that will signify Luke, right? It would be Please Don't Let Me Be Misunderstood, right? It's such a beautiful song. It's pretty much like that song is basically my personality. So if you don't know that song, go listen to it. I will put that song on in my social media today because, well, I want you guys to know me. So little by little, right? A little bit. I'll throw a little. Every video stream, I sprinkle a little bit of myself. And you guys have received me really well. So there's no reason for why I wouldn't keep sharing with you. And again, you guys have shared with me what you shared, and I appreciate it. And I'm touched by it. So anyway, I'll stop there. Sorry, Paul. All right. Ian said a favorite song of mine too. Thank you. See? Yeah. This is why I put myself out there, because then Ian says something like this, and I'm like, okay, you see that? Otherwise, I could have kept it to myself. And then Ian loves this song. I love this song. And now we don't know that we both love this song. Right? It's like birds of a feather flock together. Anyway, but opposites attract. All right, so we'll keep going on to the. Look at this, man. And again, these are photos these are not shot by me. Full disclosure, these are Paul's photos. Right? Again, you guys already know how highly I think about Paul's photo taking abilities. Again, why would I try to retake a photo of this hat if Paul already did it in like much better? Like, this is what I saw when like Paul was showing me, hey, do you like this? And I'm like, yes, I love it. Send it. Let's see here. Look at that. Again, look at how the light is playing on with the felt here. We learned that from Steve Hex, right? And about velour. The light does, and we saw that in all the Fedora Fridays. Light does really interesting things to felts when they hit it. And I feel like, again, I don't know how much of this is purposeful on Paul's part, but from me, when I look at a hat, I look at how the various forms of light are hitting it, right? And if the hat looks good in every piece of light that I see, well, why wouldn't it look good on my head, right? You know, obviously because of my face, but you know, besides that, I can't change that. You know, the hat's still a beautiful hat. I'll take it off. Like if I'm distracting you from this hat, I'll take it off and show it to you. You know, let's see here. God, this ribbon. That's the other thing. It's like that's part of the do-it-allness of this hat, right? You guys know I like a thick ribbon in general, but this thin ribbon, right? And again, you guys, if you've seen this show before, you guys know that the inspiration for this hat was a hat that I saw Paul, right? Paul showed early on in his appearance here that he had crafted for a customer. Right? And then that led to this hat, this blue hat. And then that blue hat led me to go onto Paul's website and find this hat, which I believe was all black, right, Paul? It was all black.
Yeah, it was very much like this one. I mean, it was. You know, this is a favorite of mine, and
exactly.
You know, I like wearing that out quite a bit because the shape makes a statement, but it's not over the top. You know, people still think it looks a very classy shape rather than you know. Yeah,
it's
like I say, we're a bit too formal in the UK, but you know.
I love it. I love it because again, I now, thanks to you, Paul, I now have a flavor of the styling in the UK, and I'm gonna go out there, you know, and then now I have to kind of decide: am I going to flock with the folks in the UK, or am I gonna go try to be a little bit out there? I'm probably gonna try to blend in. Maybe I'll bring the Scott and Co. Right?
Yeah.
Maybe that's the hat to wear in the UK. You know, like, hey, you don't know this this smiling man in front of you, but at least respect the hat, right?
Yeah.
Let's see here. Ian says black and white go better together than I previously imagined. Yeah, and that's the thing. It's not white; it's ivory. But right, because this ivory, again, it didn't dawn on me until Paul used the term ivory. It's not white; it's ivory. And when he said ivory, my brain automatically went to Ebony and Ivory. Again, I didn't say it, but that's what I was thinking. I just did that so that Paul, as the artist, right? Paul, the artist that's crafting this hat with my feedback is not encumbered by my feedback, right? That's the process, right? That's the process that you pay for with Paul, and I'm sure it's the same process that you pay for with anybody that does hatting the way Paul does it. That's what you get for your money. That's why, for me, it's a screaming deal. You may say, "Oh, well, you know, Paul's hats are expensive. I could just go to you know, I don't know. I don't know who it would be. I could do something else that's not the price for one of Paul's hats." But same thing you could say about Hornscove. Same thing you can say about you know, Huffwood. The same thing you could certainly say about Optimo. But you don't, you know, based what, like we mentioned with Paul here, you buy this as a milestone, right? Paul sells milestone hats. And to be honest, when you think about it that way, Paul's pricing, and again, I'm doing this, I don't get any money out of this. Like, trust me, if you think I'm, you know, regardless of what you think of me, there's no, like Paul knows this, Paul can speak, you know, you don't trust us, I don't know who else you're going to, like, if you can't believe us, and then I don't know who you can believe it, you know, at this point.
Yeah.
But Paul, I have no financial benefit from saying any of this, right? Paul is a friend. right? That I want to see him sell more hats not because, you know, they're not worthy of it. It's because they are very much worthy of it. And I'm trying to tell you, this hat is worth it. You know what I mean? And like I said, Paul's very reasonably priced, to be honest. Yeah. Anyway, I won't belabor that point because sometimes, you know, that's kind of my thing, and I apologize for that. But yeah, Ian says it must look even better in real life. Yeah. The thing about it, the first thing I got it right. The nice thing that I did, and again, I don't know how purposeful it was. I just figured because Paul and I were talking about several hats, right? I think we had 5, right, Paul?
Yeah.
And then we determined that, okay, 3 at a time sounds like a good number, right? So we settled on, okay, I got to get 2 PJ Murphy and Sons, and I got to get that Hamburg. You know, I was like, I got to have that Hamburg. So I said, okay, we're going to do the Mets Knicks hat right here. And then I'm going to do the Hamburg, and then I'm going to do this. And it's so immediately apparent, like when you feel this, like if anybody ever came to my house, I would tell them, right? Feel this felt and feel this one, and you automatically know it's not the same grain, right? Like it's not the same felt. They're both beautiful. It's just different. It's a different weight. And I couldn't even tell you what the weight is. Paul will have to tell you what the weights of these felts, but to me, it feels like a way different grain.
Yeah. The one you've got on is about 100 grams, I think, and the one on the wall is more close to 150. I think it's 145 grams or something. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. And you know, the lighter felts you can put shellac stiffener on, and they feel perhaps a little bit heavier and so on. But it's funny. I've got a liking for the Western weight felts for real solid hats, but then I also like the sort of 120 gram, 100 to 120 gram, fairly lightweight hats, because they just, you don't even know you got them on your head. They're just lovely, you know.
That's how this feels, and like I said, it's unencumbered, right? Like just like I use that term in a variety of contexts, but there's something about the idea of feeling unencumbered, right? So if that's the way you want to feel, right? So that's something I would tell to any hatter when you're trying to select a grain, right? Not just what you want to use with the hat. How do you want to feel? Do you want to feel light, and you want to be able to move around, right? Maybe somebody is doing it has a very active lifestyle, and maybe feeling lightweight is more important than durability, right? Then that's how I would kind of describe it, right? Like this is how Luke, right? Like if Luke was doing this and Luke was selling a hat, I'd be like, well, how do you want to feel? You know, and that sounds like a silly question until like you break it down and you say, well, it's probably the most important question.
They just don't understand it. They think that you're getting a bit deep into their personality or whatever, and when you explain a little bit more, that you know what, you know, they sometimes just say, okay, let's go for a sort of a 10 centimeter crown and a 6.5 centimeter brim, you know, with just a small shaping in it, and we'll leave off the trim, but you know, and then they start wearing it, and then they start coming back, and it's amazing it's amazing to me how quickly some people come back, you know.
Oh yeah, but anybody that's an addict, right? Because I sometimes fashion myself an addict, and I use these terms that have this stigma to it, right? Because I see, like, I'm an addict, and you're like, whoa, I feel bad for you. I'm like, why? I love this stuff. I love this stuff, right? You know, I love my Adderall, and I love my hats. You know, I also love my watches, right? You know, you don't take away my addiction from me. It's very much a part of me. But everybody out there, right? You meet your fellow addict out there, like Steve Heck, right? Paul talked about having, 60 hats at some point, right? It's like yada, yada, yada. And then I had 60 hats, you know, or whatever the number was. I can't remember exactly, but I believe it was 60.
It was about 60.
Yeah. So, you know, like these things, they multiply, right? It's like when baseball, like home runs come in bunches. They talk that whole adage, hats come in bunches, right? Because, well, you know that these are emotional purchases, right? You tend to do them in bunches, right? Let's say you have the money to do it in bunches, right? I bought 3 hats from Paul because I had the money to do that. But maybe you don't have that, right? Maybe your situation whereas you can only buy 1 hat. Don't worry about it, right? Paul Paul is going to live forever. He promised me he will live forever. Paul will be around for you to buy the next hat, right? So Paul, you're not allowed to go away anywhere. You have to stay within hatting.
Yeah, thank you very much for that, Luke. And I intend to stay around. But you know what? I think that's a good point actually you make, is that just buy the one hat, because when you're trying a hatter for the first time, you don't know whether you're going to, buy into them and get along with them. You don't know that they're going to be able to interpret your thoughts on the hat to an end result. And I think I told you the story about the lady that contacted me through eBay, and she wanted to buy a hat, but had actually had 3 hats made for her before, which never lived up to anywhere near her expectations. When mine arrived, she got on the meshes board immediately and said, "I can't believe it. It's just absolutely wonderful. It fits perfectly. It's a fantastic finish. I'm just sold." And I just thought, that's lovely, because now the sale, if you like, has been done. The process has gone through, and the person has had the trust in me. And I'm sure for that lady, it was quite difficult, because it was spending the money that she spent, and and she'd already had 3 failed attempts at getting the right hat. So it was difficult for her.
And that's what, this is, again, this is when Paul's disposition, right? Again, if you've seen Paul here on this channel, you know that Paul has a certain disposition. And I'm pretty sure Paul's very self-aware of, right? Because Paul's seen, right? You've seen Luke's disposition, right? You know that me and Paul have very different dispositions. You've seen Robert here, right? Me and Robert have very similar dispositions. And I think that's why we got on so well. And that might be also a reason why maybe sometimes we don't get on so well, right? Like sometimes two peas in a pod become like, hey, get out of my pod, right? But again, I may be going too far with that analogy. But the idea is that you also have to decide how much of yourself, right? So yes, you're going to be dealing with all types if you become somebody that interacts with the public, right? You are providing a service. You're providing a service for a lot of times for people that are very different from yourself. And there's a certain disposition that you have to have. And that's why I feel that Paul the Hatter is probably more well suited to doing this than a lot of other folks that I've met. Because again, I mean that as no disrespect to any other hatter, right? Just because I compliment Paul does not mean that I am disparaging anybody else. Please don't, if you watch this, don't take that. I'm a very respectful person. So I just want to make that known, and Paul's disposition, I think, is well suited for the wide gamut. This is why I feel that Paul is going to be very successful. He is successful, but there's even more success waiting for Paul in this in this hobby, this passion, this whatever you call this that Paul is doing. Right? It's a business, but it's more than a business. But you have to have the more weaponry, right? The more dispositional weaponry and fortitude and persistence that you have as a hatter, the more successful you're going to be, because you're not going to have everybody that comes across your way is not going to be like you, is maybe not even like you, right? Like Paul can the nice thing about Paul is that Paul may not like you as a person. He could still make a great hat for you.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I had to learn from the early stages is listen an awful lot to the client, and ask them the right questions and let them just exude about what their thoughts are for the hat. And most people haven't done this before, so they don't really know what they should be saying, and what makes a good hat and so on. And I think, again, teasing that out of them and making them feel comfortable about them, and then giving them time, what I normally do is then record everything that's said down on paper, and then send them a build sheet so that they've got time to think about it, and just make double sure that that what we've discussed is actually what they finally want. So it's good.
That's so perfect, Paul. You hit the nail, and you reminded me of and I mentioned this several times to you, Paul, is that thanks for being so easy to work with. And again, it's not meant when I say these things, I really mean it. Like Paul, your process was so perfect because at no time did you rush the process, right? You kind of listened to me in terms of like, you knew that I was like, I want to get this to like the way I wanted it. And never did you say, Luke, I got like 8 customers waiting up. I know you have customers. Like if I'm your, like when I, and again, I'm probably saying something that Paul already knows, but I do this so you guys, the audience, know how I think, right? And how I am, right? If you're a hatter, I want you to know how I am, because if you want to work with me, right? If we want to do a project together, then you got to know how I think, right? Or if you don't have that kind of time, you got to know really right on, like what Luke's about. And Luke was not about, well, besides talking in third person, Luke wasn't about like rushing the process. And Paul never rushed the process. Like Paul went, when we get it to when you're good, we're going to send it out. And I think that was one of the main things about Paul, as Paul the Hatter, that I want to communicate here for you guys that haven't had the benefit of going through that process with Paul, is that he never makes you feel like you're just somebody else that is keeping him from working on his next project. Like it's going to get done. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was going to say, I think the thing is, it's not a sausage factory when you're doing things like myself and Josh is doing and others. It's you're actually building a one-off, and even though I'm very lucky to be able to have afforded to buy all of the felts I've got and have so many hats in stock, but it's nice to have a backlog of work, and yes, from time to time I do. But the other nice thing is that it works very well in with my workload. And I guess that as you get older, you decide how you're going to conduct your business life and things. Yeah. And that's where I've been very, very fortunate that I can do that. And the pressure's not on me. And I guess, with younger hatters that are just relying on hatting for their income and so on, then there's that danger that they fall into, which is that every customer wants to feel that they are your only customer, and so they should, and that you give them the time when they're free, and you just want to bring out, their story, in the hat, and I think that's what I love it. I mean, because I'm sure Josh and others do too, because you get touched by people, you get their story. And the amount of people that I've spoken to that are recovering from some form of illness, and this seems to be something that they're doing in their recovery in terms of spending their time and so on. And you think, well, I've made a difference to that person today or tomorrow or whatever, and all the way through the process. And then when you keep getting photographs of them when they're wearing it out and showing you that they're getting so much fun, and their friends and family are enjoying seeing them being so happy, that's quite that's more than just hatting. That's sort of creating relationships, I think.
Yeah, Paul. Wow. I don't think you can come up with that phrase better than how Paul just communicated it. But I'm going to try to repeat, like every customer wants to feel like they're your only customer. Like that is, if that doesn't tell you about Paul, the man, the business person, the everything, right? That's something that gets it. You know what I mean? I don't know how I can't do it justice, right? Like,
well, thank you. Look, I mean, look, it's just nice. It's not. I'm not exceptional. I'm not. I don't consider myself to be, an excellent hatter. I consider myself to be an okay hatter. I consider that I'm possibly halfway through my journey. I've still got a lot of money to invest in certain pieces of equipment. But in the meantime, I am making some hats that people seem to think are nice, and getting enjoyment from it. So long may it continue, really.
Yeah, and like I said, stay in the good graces of your wife. Again, I'm telling you stuff that you already know. But you got Ian and myself that are enjoying your hat, Paul, and we're both praying that you can continue like that trajectory, right? Because this is why I have you here, Paul, is that I feel like I can't teach you anything about business. I can't teach you anything you don't already know about by a lot of things. All I can do is, well, if somebody gets me and they like know that if Luke recommends Paul, then I got to check this guy out. That's the only thing I could hope to offer somebody like Paul, because I know I know what he can do. Like I have it right here on my head. Ian, over in his neck of the woods, has a PJ Murphy on his head, like that. You've seen it. All we can do is continue adding to that, and I'm sure all your other customers, Paul, will probably say that much more, and maybe even better in a better way, a little less spastic than this guy.
Well, I think you don't do yourself justice there. I think that the way that you help me is by bringing these other people onto the show. I was so disappointed that I missed Mr. Gall. And how I would have loved to have had the conversation with him, because I think Josh has bought the same course. I think I mentioned it to him about the course that Robert ran, and you could buy online. And for me, it was a confirmation of doing things in a certain way was the correct way, etc. And so he's been an inspiration to me, and helped keep me on track. And I think it was lovely seeing Brian Forbes. I mean, he was a sort of hero, if you like, of the alternative designs of hats. What a character. I mean, it's just goes to show that the industry is made up of so many different people, and there's no right and no wrong. It's all about how people want to express themselves. And it was just an absolute pleasure to see and hear what he had to say. And then for then this channel to help relationships grow. I mean, for Ian and I, we'd never met each other, and to meet up when we did, and to be so welcoming between us, and have a great day, and we're going to do it again. I think that was something that both of us were grateful that you and the channel have brought. So you are doing more than you think. That's appreciated. I'm sure it'll all grow for people.
Yeah, again, that's kind of the idea that, like, again, and again, it could easily have been just a bloke or just a guy, right? In my thing, I'm just a guy talking about bloviating about fine hats, right? And again, I guess it's a little bit, I can't help but be a little bit self-effacing, only because I know what I am, I know what I'm not, right? I know my limitations, right? And I got more limitations than you guys don't even know. But it's one of those things where I'm like, again, I've mentioned this before about the pie, that I wear this pie necklace not for any kind of, I had somebody, I was actually in a thrift store a couple weeks back. I was looking at some artwork, and the owner of the shop came over and went to go see me, one to help ask me if I needed any help with the artwork. And I said, well, I'm looking for like some stuff by, if you have any prints by Salvador Dali. Right, he just happens to be my favorite artist. Big fan of Salvador Dali. And he was like, "Oh, you're interested in Dali?" And then he got on like this interesting discussion about a Russian spy that lived in the area that happened to have a bunch of original Dali work. He had an original Picasso's, and I was like, "Wow," you know what I mean? Like, he blew my mind with that, And again, I don't have the kind of money to go and spring for an original Dali and let alone an original Picasso. I just happen to like the work, right? It speaks to me, and I like to have the things around me, right, surround me. So I explained that to him, and then he said, well, what is your interest in, like the in all this? Like, are you a reseller? I'm like, well, I'm not opposed to reselling, right? Like that's not my initial goal. I just like to have beautiful things, beautiful people, beautiful ideas around me. And, if somebody likes that idea more than I do, or that thing, well, they can go and buy it off me. Right. And he was like, I don't know. I guess I touched him. And then he's like, all right, well, wait a minute. Before you go, what is up with the pie? Like, what's going on with pie? And I'm like, well, and I explained it to him, just like I explained it to you guys, my viewers. And I said, it's just the metaphor for the unlimited potential that we all have within, again, as Warren Buffett would say, within our circle of competence, right? Luke, when Luke was 10 years old, he was thinking about pitching for the New York Mets. That's never going to happen. But in this channel, in my hat collection, in my ability to love and care for those around me, I have unlimited potential. right? I can still ascend, right? We talked about Rocky. We talked about Jack Bondurant. We talked about The Godfather, Michael Corleone. Those are stories of ascension, right? Right. That's an age-old story. Just like and just like every story of ascension, there's a natural descent, right? Just like in business, when you have the rise of Amazon, it had to do with the fall of Barnes and Noble and all the other businesses that fell or are in the process of falling because of the monolith that is Amazon, the monolith that is Apple, right? IBM is not the same company it used to be before Apple came along, right? This is the natural order of things, right? And if you want to know about the natural order of things, right, in business, you can listen, you can go subscribe to the YouTube channel by Ray Dalio. Ray Dalio is a icon in business and in the ideas of money in financial markets. And he has a very beautifully done high production value of videos about the rise and fall of empires, right? And the rise and fall of money, right? If you're interested in those topics, check that out because it's knowledge. And well, obviously, I don't need to tell you why it's good to know about finance and why it's good to know about business. If you don't know, if you don't think that it's important, well, then we agree to disagree. But Ray Dalio and people like that, with Warren Buffett, Ray Dalio, Jeff Bezos, and all the other great thinkers, not because they're billionaires, right? You may never heard of Ray Dalio, right? But you probably know Jeff Bezos. You probably know Elon Musk. You probably know Bill Gates, right? Trust me that Ray Dalio is every bit as important as those gentlemen. He may not have the same pocketbook as those gentlemen, but that's not how I view people. I don't view people as how much money you have. I view you as, do you have wisdom to share with the world? If you do, then you're important to me. And I will go and I will plug you, even if I don't know you. Anyway, I'll get off that soapbox. But yeah, in terms of the process, Paul, again, I thank you. And that's why I wanted to create the show. I had to wait for you to come back and available to us to do this show because, man, I was excited to do this show ever since I got this hat.
Oh,
and I had to be
I'm
a little
very,
patient.
very grateful.
Yeah, I had to be really patient with it. It took a lot of, and I'm going to keep showing photos here. This is probably the one I used for the thumbnail. Right? This is the one, like I said, that I'm like, okay, I'm going to use this because this is what makes this hat both a piece of art as well as, well, just unique, right? It's unique. And Ian says, Yahoo to Google, Skype to Zoom, almost overnight business shifts. Yeah. Again, empires come, empires go, right? Everybody knows this. Nobody lasts forever, right? Even November Rain, right? Shout out to Guns N' Roses. Nothing lasts forever. I won't last forever. Paul won't last forever. Ian won't last forever. Even Morgan, who's the youngest one of us all, won't last forever, right? It's up to you guys to make your mark on this world, right? And you could do it with goodness, right? There's nothing to say that you can't do it with positivity, right? There's so much negativity in this world, and that's why this hat, right? That's why this hat, right? The darkness, right? We talked about Tom Hardy, right? And the iconic villain, Bane, right? Bane is a character that was born out of darkness, right? It's like, oh, you think darkness is your ally, right? You merely adopted the dark, but I was born in it, molded by it, right? That those words are powerful. This is a villain, essentially a villain schooling Bruce Wayne, a billionaire, right? A guy that has nothing, but he's going to rock this world, right? That's why villains are important to have and to not necessarily celebrate in as like, I want to be a villain, right? Like I talk about The Godfather. I don't celebrate gangsterism. I don't celebrate this thing. I know that exists, but there's goodness, right? Like I said, a Greek tragedy. Bane is a Greek, might as well be a Greek tragedy. If you watch the entire movie, not just the part that you think are badass, how did Bane, the person, come about? And that's why Tom Hardy is iconic, right? Bane, the character, is very much iconic as I don't know, Bill the Butcher, right? Again, these are tragic figures. Another great show is Better Call Saul. Better Call Saul is a character that was born out of Breaking Bad, but It's a sympathetic lawyer. What else can I tell you? You want a lawyer, a sleazy lawyer, an ambulance chasing lawyer that you feel bad for? Watch Better Call Saul. Like, he's somebody that you're supposed to hate, not idolize. And that's the beauty of that show. Like, there's beauty in it. Let's see here. My good friend Ian says, cattle die, kinsmen die, but netting never dies. The name you leave behind you, the Havamal. Wow, I'm not familiar with that quote, but I love it. I love it. You know, and again, this is not something that you come here expecting, right? You didn't come to Good Looks expecting wisdom. You definitely didn't come here for good looks, right? That's kind of an ironic name, not for not because I think I'm good looking. You know, it's the good, right? And also the look, right? That's where you came here. And Ian, says one thing. Yeah, you know, Ian, you. No wonder Paul. Like I said, Paul's reaction when you came on, Ian, like when you guys were hanging out, Paul's reaction showed me everything. Ian was very calm and cool, collected with his cappuccino, right? And then Paul was like, "Oh my gosh, we're doing all this. We got this going." You know what I mean? Like Paul went full like he was 12. But like the good part, right? Like not because he's immature, is because he's having fun. Let's see here from the 10th century Norseman. I love it. I love it. Again, wisdom comes from all angles. Like I said, some of the wisest things that have been said to me and the most things that touch me the most have been said by kids, right? From the mouths of babes, right? When that kid said, "Mister, do you kidnap children?" It's like, I wanted to hug that little girl, even though she was technically telling me I look like a bad guy. But just the fact that she acknowledged in her environment, she chose to acknowledge me. And she's like, "Whoa, wait a minute. What is this guy doing?" You know? And Ian says, of course, like a good researcher, he says, "That's my translation." Agreed. Yours, Ian, your translation is the one I care about. You know, I'll look at the original source and then I'll see what that's about. But, you know, you brought that out over here. So, you know, I appreciate it, my friend. But yeah, this angle here, Paul, again, I didn't tell Paul how to do this X, FYI. Again, getting back to the story, I didn't tell Paul how to do this X. I merely said, this is what I want. Like, I want to have something like a Band-Aid. I think that's the exact term that I used. Paul created a Band-Aid. I
think the thing was, I went through a few crosses because just getting the proportions right, because it was only a very small hole, so it didn't need to be that big. But it was getting the right match of making a statement and actually, and it obviously being on there. So I just felt that this was probably the best mix of the two, really.
Yeah. Paul, man, you knocked it out the park. And let me just go continue on here so you guys can see the angles. Again, that teardrop, that classic Stratoliner, that I call it the Paul, because Paul is, well, you know what I mean? Like, Stetson's one thing, but I didn't buy a Stetson. I bought a Paul, you know, a Paul Murphy, Paul John Murphy, right? A PJ Murphy and Son. That teardrop is, I mean, we saw it last on Friday with Elliot Ness, right? That teardrop shape is so beautiful, right? There's something beautiful in the tears, right? It's a
very comfortable shape, isn't it? It does, it does sit well, and it feels good. So why not?
Yeah, it's just classic. Again, with the Band-Aid, like I said, the Band-Aid just adds to it. And this is a conversation. I'll show you this next photo. This is a conversation that Paul and I had, with the label, right? So let me go and see if I can zoom in here, right? And you can see the bottom, right? That bottom piece here. This is Paul's old label. And Paul, I don't know if you want to rehash. I want to make sure I don't like.
Yeah, I mean, when I first started out, I started with the YouTube channel. I got the image of the gentleman's head there, and I wanted to create something that was obviously exuding the fact that it was a British hatter that was making the hats here, and I came up with that logo, and I felt quite comfortable with it for the YouTube channel. But I thought it was rather dark. In fact, my wife was the one that said, "Look, that's a bit dark, Paul. That's almost sinister." And I thought, "Oh, I hadn't really thought about that." And in fact, what I then did was some research about, birds and being free. What does a hat do? Well, it enables you to be free with your expression and communicate how you feel. And maybe that's going a bit deep. I don't know. But the bird that I chose was a sort of swallow swift type bird that is free to fly and very agile. And it's with the multiple colors. It was something that I felt was a good progression. So now I use the both. And you can see the progression from one to another. But this is part of the journey that you go on as a hatter to find yourself. And I had to find myself. And I think I feel happier with the bird as being less sinister and more free, if you like, in terms of design than this one. But I've followed on and kept this one on the YouTube channel. And what I did was these are sublimation. So what you do is you buy the sort of transfer that you then iron onto the material. So it's a good one for Josh if you've not got your own your own linings, then you can make them up, and it's fairly economical to buy a small run of these things.
And again, and Paul knows this because we had that conversation, right? So everything that Paul just communicated, he had communicated to me, and I'm like, I didn't even, like, Paul thought I didn't have any idea until Paul brought it forward. Hey, this is the lining that exists. Do you want this one or do you want the new lining? So he gave me the option, and I'm like, oh my gosh, Paul, no offense, but this guy looks like Vito Corleone to me, And you guys know how much I love The Godfather. When I saw this gentleman, I'm like, oh my gosh, you guys know how I am with The Godfather. You only need to look at my my logo right now, and that may not be my final logo, but right now, Good Luke's with the puppeteering hand is my logo, and this hat, like, yes, I want that. Like, that is perfect. Oh man, it's so good looking, and and I like the new logo as well, Paul. Don't get me wrong. I think now that I know what the bird signifies, I'm glad I now have both. I feel like I've collected, right? The collector bug in me has
you've come on the journey with me. Luke, you've come on that journey, and that's nice. It's nice to have clients that have done that and enjoy that. So thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you, sir. Let's see here. Josh says, on the new old hat I'm working on, I'm working on has a small crack over from an overbend. I'm trying to I'm working to try to hide.
I can only imagine from that what Josh is saying is, do you remember what we said about putting your hat on and not picking it up like that, but picking it up on the brim? I think that when you pick it up like this, and a lot of people do, you see it in the films and you see it elsewhere, over a period of time, your the oils and grease from your fingers and your hand get onto the felt. The felt then crushes to quite a tight bend, and over time it wears. And on many an older hat, you'll see that there's a small hole or whatever, and it could be that's what that Josh is referring to. It's quite common, and you can pick up hats very cheaply for that, and it's quite difficult to hide it really without some obvious attachments.
Yeah, and Josh said the crack
on the brim.
On the brim.
Okay. Oh, that's unusual.
Yeah, and then Josh mentions that he's still working on his linings. Yeah, that's going to be the process.
Yeah.
And the nice thing is, Josh, he's showing his process to us. Yeah, that journey is happening with time. You know,
I enjoy it, Josh. It's an interesting time. You will have times when you'll go to bed at night thinking, I'm never going to do this. This is just not going right. And then you wake up in the morning and there's been something that's gone on in your head overnight, and you think, right, I've now got another idea. Let's try this. Yeah. And eventually you'll come to, a calm sort of conclusion that you found something that you want to move forward on.
Yeah, absolutely, Paul. And the next thing I'll mention is that Paul said walk, and obviously walking helps me. I know walking is something that for ADHD folks, it's really helpful. I didn't know that up until recently. When I was losing weight, I just found that I had mental clarity. I thought it was because I was losing weight, but which was helpful, right? But it was the walking that was helping me with my ADHD, which was allowing me, right, in hindsight, right, and reflecting upon my process, my old, like Luke in 2018 or 19, right during COVID, I was walking and I'm like, holy cow, this walking's great. Like I'm losing weight and that's my focus is getting better. And I had no idea. Well, I had some idea, but my brain wouldn't let me touch on this idea of ADHD. The walking was clearing my head, which was allowing me to focus on things like my weight and what I was putting in my mouth. I didn't know what I didn't know, right? So like I'm sharing this not because I want to give health advice. It's when I want to show you what works for me, and you guys can decide as the masters of your own destiny, right? Controllers of your own fate, to decide whether that's something that you want to do. But please don't get your health advice from me. Please don't get any advice from me. Maybe hat advice if you're gonna like, if we want to keep it at something. Look, I got to get something out of this. Well, then maybe take some hat advice. But I said there's no wrong way to do this. If you are putting out good energy out there, and you let's say you want to take your hat and turn it backwards, I'm gonna celebrate you. Like you're gonna have my respect if you go and decide. Remember, I talked about like the rally fedora that I broke out, the Hamburg. That gentleman in Utah saw my photo of the Hamburg, a Dobbs Hamburg that he eventually bought. And the one photo that he chose was me with the Hamburg upside down. I'm like, of every photo that you could have picked, you picked the one where I'm like, I'm having a lot of alcohol, to be honest. I'm going to just call that. This is a very inebriated Luke that is watching his team with all his buddies. And they're all wearing their baseball caps backwards. I just decide that I'm going to put my drink down. I'm going to take my Hamburg and wear it upside down. And that's the photo that this gentleman found and said, I want this hat. You can't make that stuff up. You can't make it up. So it goes to show you. But with Josh, like I said, Paul makes that great. And again, Paul, I don't know, you weren't here for the Fedora Friday on Lawless, right?
No.
But yeah, during that broadcast, I point out the gentleman that it's basically, Josh said it perfectly. It's the country version of The Godfather, right? And these were moonshiners, and the protagonist, played by Shia LaBeouf, wore in the beginning a Hamburg that was tattered. It's a very tattered Hamburg with it had the classic hole that you get from like you mentioned from the wear, and the Hamburg still looked regal. That goes to show you, right? Like you don't know how powerful a hat is and a hat style is unless you see it in like its worst form. And that was one of the worst forms I've seen a Hamburg, and it still looked regal. It still looked distinguished. He still looked like a guy that you wanted to take seriously, even though, again, Jack Bondurant, his process was like, he ultimately like got his moonshining career. He got this respect from his family. And then he got the respect from the girl, right? The girl that he's courting. And then he switches to flat cap, like a more Chicago dapper look. And that's a beautiful transition, right? That for me is art in film, to watch progression of a character and to see how that gentleman, right? So you all know, like everybody knows Bill Gates was 12 years old one time. Warren Buffett at one time was 12 years old, right? They probably weren't like other 12-year-olds, but they were still 12 years old. So goes to show you, like everybody ascends. No matter, and obviously I will never be Warren Buffett. I will never be Bill Gates, nor do I want to be. I want to just be myself. It doesn't mean I don't want to learn from them, right? And it shows you like ascension is one of those age-old stories. And that's why The Godfather is what it is, a story about ascension and about family, right? And then obviously they made part 2 and part 3 that shows the descent, right? You can't have ascension without eventually getting to, right? You peak and then you descend. But while you are descending, somebody else is rising up. That's just the natural order of things. Ray Dalio describes it perfectly. It's the natural order of empires. It's the natural order of everything. Right? It's the reason why we saw Apollo Creed. We saw as Rocky was rising, Apollo Creed had to fall. And then when Rocky was falling, Adonis Creed, right? Apollo's son was rising, right? He didn't get to where he got unless he had Rocky, right? right? And Mick and all the other characters. Again, this is just in context. I tell you stories. The reason why film is so powerful is that it tells a story that you already know, but you want to see it anyway, because they do it in such a way that makes you it grabs onto you, right? And it makes those characters iconic. Anyway, I'll get off of that. Paul, what I wanted to go into here, I'm done with the photographs. I know that sometimes you have things to do. I do want to get into Chat GPT. So I want to make sure that you know that I'm going to get into Chat GPT. If you have to leave, then don't worry about it.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you, and I've got a few things I've got to finish up this evening. So, as I say, really pleased that you like the hat and it fits, and all the other good things. And I'll see you and everybody else on probably the next show or very soon. Anyway, thank you very much.
Yeah, Fedora Friday number 6. Paul, thank you very much. It has been a pleasure. This is not the end. This is only the beginning. So we'll do it again. We got other things that we're going to work on. I promise. Paul John Murphy. Kind of like fighting back a little bit of the beautiful man, beautiful hatter. Just a great, toodle pip, as my good man Ian says. Josh says bye. You see, this is what we do here. This is Cheers, right? Paul's a busy man. Paul came on here because, we're going to talk about one of his works, and he knows. I think Paul already had some idea about what this hat meant to me, but it was important for me to do the show with Paul here because, I want you guys to kind of see, right? Like you get the real reaction from Paul as he's seeing me talk about one of his works, right? It's like, imagine if Salvador Dali was right next to you and you were talking about the art, right? Right? That's not going to happen. Salvador Dali is no longer with us, but maybe you have a artist that's still alive that you can go visit, and you're a real big fan of their work, right? A musician, right? That you can go meet and talk about the music and why it's so important to you, right? You're never going to have somebody, right? Like I come from like a research background, right? From academic research. And I mentioned this before. If you want to go and talk to somebody, right? Let's say you're in research. All you got to do is one thing. Hey, I read your paper, and that's it. You got them, right? Very few people in the academic world, in any world, will say, "Hey, I really dig your work." That's not going to give you the time of day. If they are that kind of person, well, maybe you got maybe you picked the wrong hero, right? But right, like for me, it's really easy, right? I'm going to go say, I read your paper. If you ignore me and you say, and you don't tell me, hey, tell me more, well, then I don't want to talk to you. And maybe I picked, maybe you just made good work and you're just not that great of a human being, right? Or it could be that you're that busy, right? I mean, some people are that busy, but for me, I'm like, make time, right? And make time. I read your paper. Make time for me. Anyway, sorry, I'm ranting again. But I did want to talk about, like I said, why this kind of, for me, and you guys already know from the title, Ebony and Ivory, right? That this hat is art, right? Like, again, I don't think Paul created this hat intending to create art. It's art because, Luke says it's art, right? And Ebony and Ivory, what a great song, right? And I want to talk about like this idea, right? The two artists here, Paul McCartney. Obviously, everybody knows Paul McCartney. Everybody knows Michael Jackson, right? But did you know that they knew each other and were actually friends, right? The story of Paul McCartney and Michael Jackson might as well be a movie. If it's a movie, then you guys let me know. I don't think that movie has been made, right? There's been movies about the Beatles. There have been movies about Michael Jackson, right? But nobody has thought, right? And this is why, if you're a filmmaker out there and you watch my channel and you're like, man, I'm looking for a movie to make. See this movie I would watch, right? Like the real story, not the one that like the create, and you know what I mean? Like again, if you do create like some kind of fiction around it, then it better be good, right? Like, don't get me started. It better be good, right? I don't care if it's not accurate. If it's good cinema, I want to watch it. but the idea of Jackson and Paul McCartney, right? Like that. And again, we know that the arc here is Stevie Wonder, but for me, right, Ebony and Ivory, even though it's a Stevie Wonder and Paul McCartney collaboration, I automatically thought about Michael Jackson, right? Right. So they didn't do Ebony and Ivory, right? Stevie Wonder did. But in my mind, when I was thinking of Paul McCartney, Ebony and Ivory, I was thinking of Michael Jackson only because of the strife, right? And again, you see, I kind of switched it up, right? You thought that this was about Paul McCartney and Stevie Wonder, but it's not. I mean, it is, right? That's the song, Ebony and Ivory. But I'm talking about two artists, right? Paul McCartney and Michael Jackson, icons, right? Separately, icons, right? Remember we talked about Warren Buffett and Bill Gates becoming best friends? Well, as far as I know, they're not like at each other. They weren't at each other's throats. But Paul McCartney and Michael Jackson were, right? Like they were. Like if you know about the history of those two, very tumultuous, very beautiful, right? They did this song. Like one of my favorite songs besides Ebony and Ivory is Say, 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 right? But that again, anyway, it's hard to kind of like do justice. My brain is like all over the place. But I'll just read here, right? I'll just do this and then we'll close out the show after I'm done with ChatGPT. But early friendships and creative collaborations. Jackson and McCartney became friends in the mid to late 1970s and early 1980s, bonding over mutual admiration and interest in songwriting, right? Like everybody knows Paul McCartney, the songwriter, right? Like what else can I say? Paul McCartney, right? Like again, the thing about Paul McCartney is that he was writing songs essentially with another great songwriter, John Lennon, who was obviously different style, right? You know a Paul song and how it's going to be different than a John Lennon song, right? John Lennon was somebody that was no stranger to substances. I mean, they both weren't, but John Lennon's work, right? Like I Am the Walrus, all these songs, like, you know how they are, right? Like he's in a different mindset. But Paul did some great stuff like Yesterday. And obviously there was collaboration and there was also strife there, right? That's another thing. And I'm pretty sure that was probably captured in the Beatles movies, that there was tension between Paul McCartney and with John Lennon, right? There's got two icons here that are trying to steer the ship, right? It's like two chefs in the kitchen. But I don't want to, that's like easy fodder. I prefer to talk about the relationship between Michael Jackson and Paul McCartney because they weren't in the same band. They weren't even in the same kind of like era, right? Paul McCartney was still active, but Michael Jackson, right? Paul McCartney was kind of like, he already kind of in many ways was at his peak still. And then Michael Jackson was still ascending, right? When they started really like getting together and collaborating. So obviously you got 1982, The Girl's Mine. And in 1983, they released Say, Say, Say. Right? So McCartney was said to have was excited to write with Michael Jackson. There was mutual respect, and they pushed each other creatively, right? And then there was the incident, right? The catalyst for what that started the ball rolling, the demise, right, of that relationship. The advice about publishing during their collaboration in the early 1980s. McCartney shared with Jackson about how owning publishing rights to music catalogs could be extremely lucrative. This was especially relevant to McCartney because he had lost controlling interest in Northern Songs, the publishing company that originally handled many of the Beatles songs, and felt the effects of not fully owning the rights, right? Again, Paul McCartney was not a destitute individual, right? But I think a lot of the money that Paul McCartney made was probably more from touring and some of the trickle down money that came from being part of basically, for many people, the greatest band that ever kind of lived, right? And I probably say that, and I know that's weird saying that, but anybody that knows, the Beatles, like that may not be an untrue statement, right? Jackson apparently took the advice seriously. There are stories that Jackson once joked, "One day I'll own your songs," right? That was the direct quote. McCartney reportedly brushed that off at the time as a joke, right? He brushed it off as a joke, but it was obviously Jackson was really serious about it. And then here it goes. The turning point came in 1985. Jackson purchased the ATV music publishing catalog based out of the UK, which included rights to 251 Beatles songs, including classics like Yesterday, Hey Jude. He paid, right? Jackson did around $47 to $47.5 million. Wow. Like, you think about it, that's an insane amount of money, but right, what kind of money Jackson had, right? Right, he was iconic at the time, right? He had dollars coming up the yin yang. But when you think about it, you're like, man, Jackson got a deal, right? Can you imagine that you buy something that's worth 47 to 47.5 million? Let's just say $50 million, and then Luke is over here saying like, wow, you got a good deal. Can you imagine, right? That's ridiculous, but it's the Beatles catalog. 251 Beatles songs for 50 million? Like, oh yeah. Like even right, and this is not 50 million now, which is still an insane amount of money, right? This is 50 million in 1985. So if you want to do that inflation adjustment, I'm sure Ian's probably working on that right now. What 50 million in 1985 is now. And you're like, it's still a bargain, right? You're like, it's still a bargain. Like, you tell me you paid $50 million for just two songs, Yesterday and Hey Jude, you got a bargain. And again, I may be stretching that out, but I love those songs. I don't like them. I love them. Right. And I'm like, if Jackson only bought those two songs, he would have got a deal in my mind. But he bought 251. It's ridiculous. Anyway, McCartney had been interested in buying the catalog himself, so Jackson's bid effectively blocked him, right? He got blocked. So essentially, Jackson used, obviously there's no illegality here, right? But he basically implemented something kind of like insider information, right? Right? So you got, you had, and again, I understand, right? Some people have feelings about Michael Jackson. I don't know how I feel about that, to be honest, right? Like, I'm siding with Paul McCartney here, right? That seemed like a sleazy move, if you ask me, right? Again, regardless of what I think, I love Michael Jackson's work. This right here was kind of a sleazy move, and Paul, like, it wasn't lost on Paul, right? So the fallout and estrangement. McCartney's reaction was one of disappointment. He called Jackson's acquisition of the catalog dodgy, quote unquote. His wording implies that he felt it was unfair given their friendship, given that Jackson was following up on advice that McCartney had given. And again, this is one of those things where I'm like, even though it was kind of sleazy on Jackson's part, McCartney made a mistake, right? He thought that he was dealing with essentially a friend, and it wasn't, right? Again, if you don't think that there's a lesson in all this, well, then you are mistaken. Right? Again, like the idea of history doesn't repeat itself. It often rhymes, right? This stuff, if you have ever been betrayed, you kind of know what McCartney's feeling right now. He's kind of like, et tu, right? He's like, that he dealt with such sleazy people, right? McCartney did, growing up in the Beatles and losing control of the rights for his own song. And then on top of that, this guy who he thought was his friend, right, essentially kind of just swoops in and scoops up the catalog, right? You kind of got it. You got to have like in essence, if McCartney didn't order a hit on Jackson, right? If he did, you would have been like, okay, I understand why he did, right? If he didn't, right? McCartney didn't do that. McCartney just said, that's not my friend anymore. Right. This is what he did. Right. And now the world decides. Right. Again, if the world knows. Right. I don't know how many of you guys knew this, but I felt I had to discuss it because Ebony and Ivory, like I said, this is I don't know. Again, this is strife. And obviously one of these gentlemen is no longer with us. Right. Michael Jackson has passed away. Paul McCartney is advanced in years. Right. I don't know if McCartney still makes music. But he's still around to speak on this and to and to implement the idea of forgiveness, right? It's too late for Michael to go and extend his hand, but McCartney can still, make a statement, right? He's still alive to be able to say, yeah, whatever, that's the past, right? And maybe he has, but I'm just going to keep reading here because I don't pretend to be an expert. I just know this existed and I wanted to talk about it. Anyway, after the purchase, their friendship reportedly cooled. McCartney said that he and Jackson drifted apart. He said there was no big bust up, but there was a falling out in terms of closeness. McCartney also tried to later approach Jackson by getting more favorable terms, sometimes described as a raise for his songwriting contributions due to the duets. But Jackson's response, according to McCartney, that's just business. Again, eek. I don't know. Yes, but also no, right? It's kind of like, that's not just business. Again, I fully aware that this may not be making Michael Jackson seem right. I have utmost respect for his art and his music, right? I'm a big fan of his music, but it looks like Michael Jackson, the person, had some work to do, right? Right. So again, Michael Jackson, I don't know how old he was at the time, but it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter. Right? You are an icon. Right? You have how you treat relationships, right? This is, I think, one of the many lessons here is that you don't burn bridges, right? I wouldn't want to cross anybody, let alone Paul McCartney, right? Again, Paul McCartney didn't do anything malicious. He kind of like, no, that's not, I got to disassociate from this guy. And that's how you do it, right? That's McCartney just looks so much better in my mind, right? Besides the music, right? They both made iconic music, but for me, McCartney just, and again, maybe as a business person, you're like looking at Michael Jackson with more respect. I don't know. I don't know how you're thinking. For me, I'm like, I don't know. I just feel like he sacrificed a friendship for money, and I just don't know if I make that trade, right? Everybody has to make that choice, right? You guys may not be talking about $50 million here, but whatever it is, this is, you guys that are hatters out there, you guys are in business, right? Josh, Paul, Brian Forbes, Robert Galt. This should serve as a lesson for all of you, not just for hatters, right? For anybody, right? About burning bridges, right? And you got two icons here that had an example here that I feel that it's beneficial for you guys to learn about. Anyway, business consequences and legacy. Jackson didn't keep all of ATV forever, right? In the 90s, rather in the mid 90s, Michael Jackson entered a joint venture with Sony, merging ATV with Sony Music Publishing, creating what's called Sony/ATV. Jackson sold or licensed part of his interests over time. The catalog continued to generate substantial income, right? And the ownership/control of Beatles songs has been the subject of legal and business actions over the years, right? Again, this is stuff that's still, like, Paul McCartney recently was divorced, right? And I'm sure this is all had, like, there's like a trickle down effect, right? Michael Jackson, well, we kind of know what happened with, with his situation, right? But I won't speak on that. That's not the point of this. I'm basically just making a point with, again, that this is something we need to learn about, right? I'm just going to keep it down. I'll get the voice a little more mellow. I'm getting a little excited here. Anyway, personal reflections and aftermath. Despite the tension over the catalog, McCartney has spoken in later years over a degree of warmth about Jackson, calling him a lovely man, massively talented, and saying that they missed him after his death. Wow. All right, Paul. Well done. Jackson, in his autobiography Moonwalk in 1988, acknowledged that both he and Paul learned about business, publishing, and royalties, the less glamorous side of the music world. Right? Again, it looks like they may not have become best buds. At least it looks like they made some peace, right? And then key takeaways and lessons. Right? I love this. Shout out to ChatGPT for doing this. I didn't have to create this. ChatGPT did for me. Key takeaways and lessons. Talent and business advice can lead to unexpected consequences. McCartney's advice to Jackson about the money in publishing is often viewed as having backfired on McCartney in a way that he didn't foresee. Then there's the next on friendship and business. It's a tricky combination. Things can go sour, not because someone is wrong or evil, but because business dealings touch deeply personal interests, especially in something like owning the songs you wrote. And then lastly, ownership matters. This story is often cited in discussions about how crucial it is for artists to retain rights to their own work, especially long term, right? You don't need to like know anything other than like what has gone on recently with Sylvester Stallone, right? Let me go and remove this from the stage. Sylvester Stallone and the issues that he's had with owning the rights to, let's say, Rocky and Rambo and a lot of all of the work that he's produced, right? These are lessons that are right. Obviously, Rocky came out before this happened, right, in 1983. But if Stallone was paying attention, again, I'm not doing this because, I like Sylvester Stallone, obviously. If somebody was witnessing this in 1985 in the 80s, right, and they went and made the same mistake, then that right there shows you the downsides of not paying attention to what's going on, right? Not being a student of history, right? And like I said, those who fail to study history are doomed to repeat it, right? Again, it's an ominous, an ominous kind of warning, but again, it's a necessary one. And at this point, what I also wanted to kind of just talk about is just the idea of forgiveness, of Ebony and Ivory, right? Right. There's a lot of craziness going on in the world, right? And it looks like if they didn't become best friends, Paul McCartney and Michael Jackson at least kind of acknowledged the situation, right? They're human beings, right? They made mistakes, obviously. They kind of learned from. I'm sure that Michael Jackson probably learned from that mistake. I sure as heck know that probably Paul McCartney learned a lesson, a very expensive one at that, from that situation. And it's important. Like I said, I know it's a weird situation. Everybody's fans of both of them, but I think there's a lot more fans of right. And I think that there's a lot of overlap here in fans of Michael Jackson and in Paul McCartney, right? I happen to be one of them. I love both of their music, right? But again, separating out the work from the man, right? Or the men, right? The art from the men, right? Everybody knows about Pablo Picasso. Pablo Picasso was not known as the nicest of individuals, right? We also talked about John Kavanaugh, the man, right? Probably amongst his peers was not a very well-liked man because he was one of those guys that patented stuff and then enforced his patent, right? This is business, right? And again, I just do that. Don't put business before friendships, right? Try to avoid that. Or if you're going to do business with friends and with family by extension, then you have to go and do your homework, right? And then you have to kind of have these conversations, these courageous conversations. Don't leave anything undiscussed, right? Right. We tend to go and we try to like avoid these what I call courageous conversations with friends and family. But sometimes they're very important because if you don't have them early on, then later on, right, you instead of being proactive, then you have to be reactive, right? And we kind of know what happens when you tend to get reactive, right? How many times have you seen stories of business partners trying to kill their other business partner, right? To try to get everything they own, right? Right. I got a good friend that was in the, I'm just going to put this in the jewelry business, right? And he's no longer in that business. And the reason why he's not in that business is because he had a business partner that tried to essentially take him out, right? I don't know how else to describe it. Essentially set him up. He set him up. Right. And again, this was in some very valuable merchandise, right? And at some point, instead of collaborating and winning together, one of the partners decided that he was better off just taking out the other guy. And luckily, my friend made it out, right? He kind of lost the business, right? He lost, right? He wasn't able to still continue making money in that line of work. And it was probably a little bit risky in business anyway, right? It wasn't like, we talk about like Michael Corleone and Vito Corleone, that's what I meant, and not wanting to get mixed up with Sollozzo, right? It'd be about the drug business. And right, there are lessons in there. He's like, I don't want to be in that business because it's a dangerous business, right? I'd rather just stick to gambling, booze, and prostitution. At least I don't, obviously you might have your own opinions about that business, but at least for Vito Corleone, he was like, I don't need money that much that I have to get mixed up in this business, and ultimately, Sollozzo did what he did. My friend's partner did what he did, and Michael Jackson did what he did with Paul McCartney. And again, without judgment, we have to kind of learn from these things, and for me, I can't just let that stuff be uncovered, right? Or leave it to like fate. Like if I know this, I want to share it with you. And again, forgiveness is such a powerful medium, right? Like how much family can be their own worst enemies, right? The power of forgiveness is akin to the power of love, right? Right? To be able to, right? To err is human, but to forgive is divine. Plutarch said that, right? So, I know you guys come here for hats, and I give you the hats, right? I give you that. You guys, I don't like pull the rug on you. I give you the hats, right? We got hats all around here. We got joined by the creator of the Ebony and Ivory, right? This fine FEPSA felt, right? By our very own Paul John Murphy over at PJ Murphy and Son. I'm going to scroll his banner because, well, one, I want you guys to continue supporting Paul, just like I want you to continue supporting me, right? So you can follow Paul on Passion for Hats. You can follow him on Instagram at PJ_Murphy_and/son. I believe that's slash, but maybe it's an underscore. Anyway, if you put PJ Murphy on Instagram, and then you got his website here, where you guys, if you want to commission your very own PJ Murphy and Son hat, well, Paul is really easy to reach on any of these platforms, right? He will. I promise you, you're going to enjoy the process, right? And if you enjoy the process, well, the hat's basically easy, right? The hat is just like the punctuation mark, right? So yeah, again, I want to reiterate also that we just reached 50 subscribers. A momentous occasion. Help me march on to 100, right? I mean, again, it's not like it's required. It's just motivational for me to go and keep doing this. If you enjoy this content, then subscribe. If you already subscribed, get somebody else to subscribe. Maybe your girlfriend or your significant other or your family. Maybe you're like, you know what? I know you're not into hats, but you go check out this guy talking on, about hats, right? And maybe you might learn something other than hats, or maybe they just want to learn about hats. That's fine. Again, I don't come here trying to tell you how to live your life, right? I tell you about what I'm about, right? And how I choose to live my life. You guys make your own decisions and make your own call about how you want to live, right? That's not me. I don't have all the answers. I have probably more questions than I do answers, to be honest. Right? And be suspicious of those people that tell you they have all the answers, right? They're probably full of shit, And sorry for cursing, but that you know it and I know it, right? Anybody that tells you I got it all figured out, I mastered this, right? I'll doesn't matter. You know what I'm talking about, right? So be very wary, right? I'm just a guy who loves hats, and I've lived, approaching half a century now, and I'm still learning. So you guys can come learn with me, or you guys can do your own thing. Doesn't matter to me, right? I'm still gonna be smiling. I'm still gonna be rocking, my PJ Murphy and Son. I'm gonna still be rocking my Brian Forbes snowflake. I'll still be rocking my my D Bar J hat. My Carmen Sandiego hat, and I'm still going to be hatting, right? I'm still going to be doing Luke, right? You do you, I'll do me. And if we rock together, that's cool. If not, then, well, you do your thing, I'll do my thing, and we'll keep it at that. But you know where this is going. I mean, basically, before I do that, I say, hey, the other motivation is this Knox custom. If once we hit 100 subscribers, I'm going to give away this hat, right? Again, this is not a beauty queen. This is kind of a perfect knockaround hat, right? It's already got the moth bites already added, right? Like the card, you buy that used car that already has the big dent in it, right? And it's got good bones. It's got a good motor, a good transmission, right? This is the same thing. This hat's got good, there's a lot of good wear left in this hat, right? And if you want to have this as your first hat, cool, maybe you win it. Maybe you want this as just your extra hat, your knockaround hat, cool, maybe you win it, right? Or maybe you just want to restore this hat, right? All I want, Luke, I have like 1,000 hats, right? Maybe that's your situation, but I'll take this hat, I'll restore it, and maybe I'll give it away to somebody that really needs their first hat or really would like it, right? It's a 7 1/4, right? I don't know if that fits you. Maybe it doesn't matter if it fits you, right? Maybe you just want to work on a hat and give it away and rehome it. I'm down. You know, all I might ask you is to pick up shipping and I'll get it over to you and then we'll work it out. But that doesn't happen unless I get to 100 subscribers. So, you know, keep putting out the word, right? I'll keep doing this for as long as I have the energy to do it, right? And maybe not a second more, right? If I decide, if I get knocked in the head and all of a sudden I decide I want to talk about, you know, I don't know, Funko Pops. You know, now I just want to talk about Funko Pops all day. That's on my discretion, you know. I'm going to have to just apologize and say, hey, sorry, guys. Hats don't mean anything to me, but now it's all about the Funko Pops. No, it's probably not going to happen. So don't worry about it. You know, I don't think I'm ever going to have another Funko Pop. I might, maybe another Indiana Jones Funko Pop, right? That might be what's in my future. So in addition to Michael Corleone, maybe I'll get an indie Funko Pop, you know, shout out to Indy. But I don't even have an indie hat for you know, I think this might be as close as I got to my indie hat. I think that's a Kavanaugh I have right there. So shout out to Indiana Jones. Fedora Friday. I didn't really put up a poll for Fedora Friday, so that way you guys noticed I didn't put out because I felt like there's a couple movies that already like gotten votes that I want to cover, right? So obviously there are 2 movies that I'm kind of really itching to cover. Right, The Godfather Part 2. I'm also itching to cover Public Enemies. I don't know what's going to be. You guys are going to have to come and rock with me on Friday, Fedora Friday number 6. That day of, I'm going to get up. I'm going to go for a walk, or maybe I'll decide before I go for that walk. You know, I'm like, all right, I'm going to do one of these. They already got votes in the past. They're both great movies. And you guys already know how I feel about those movies if you've already rocked with me. But you have to tune in on Fedora Friday, right? Come rock with your boy Luke on Fedora Friday number 6, where I'll feature one. It could be any movie at this point, right? You know, discretion. Yeah, like and support Paul's channel and my channel. But even if you don't do that, right? So even if you choose not to rock with your boy. Right, you don't want to like the video, you don't want to subscribe, right? That's cool, that's fine, right? But you do got to do one thing for me, right? Like, you guys seen, you know, the PJ Murphy and Son, right? This is a nice, serious, all-around hat, right? I got the Ebony and Ivory, right? For the Ebony and Ivory, right? For the good of unity, right? You could just do me one favor. Do me one favor, right? Stay hatting, my friend. Have a great day. Ciao. And who we got here? We got Dark Soul Knight. Keep up the good work. Hey, Dark Soul Knight, welcome. You know, you just caught me right in the end of this, but I'm gonna shout you out. Dark Soul Knight, I appreciate it. I believe this is the first time I've seen you here. You're always welcome here. Maybe you can come out here on Friday and rock with your boy. You know, this is nothing without you guys, right? So shout out to Dark Soul Knight. Shout out to Ian. Shout out to Paul. Shout out to Josh. Shout out to all you guys that watch me live and later on in syndication, right? So you know what I said, right? Take me seriously or not. I don't care. But have a great day. Ciao, everybody. Bye.